Born on October 29th, 1928 in Bandung, Dutch East Indies, now Jakarta, Indonesia, John Habraken is a Dutch architect, educator, and theorist. His theoretical contributions are in the field of mass housing and the integration of users and residents into the design process. Seen as one of the most controversial of his generation, some revere him as a guru while others denounce him as a technocrat. Often he is described as having one good idea in his life. His book, The End of Mass Housing, explores his ideas on various levels, as well as gives a fundamental redefinition of the role of the architect. Habraken questions the role of the architect, regarding them as a design authority, and proposes to distinguish between two levels of authority with respective responsibilities: the support, designed by the architect, and the infill, determined by the individual occupant. The focus does not lie on the project themselves, but instead on his design principles and how the architect can intervene in the everyday environment. During his time at Delft University in Amsterdam, he found it peculiar that housing was not discussed and no one suggested any such work. It was not considered to be architecture, but he was nonetheless intrigued by what was going on in housing, especially in the world around him. As much as he loved and enjoyed Dutch cities, he was also appalled by the mass housing that was going on and aimed to figure out what exactly was going wrong. As a potential answer, the idea that people could do their own thing was very attractive to him, but not seen as feasible or achievable. Thinking about continuity and how complex organization could come about as a result of bottoms-up, small-scale intervention by the people themselves, Habraken decided that there is no reason to not introduce the users into the design process. Soon after his publication, he received letters of critique on his work, where one read, "This is a real Marxist approach, this is the real way to go." Another read, "This is a real capitalist approach to housing," proving to him that this proposal was universal, where people project their own worldview into it. He was not solving problems, but clarifying them. Habraken believed that participation was a term that assumes or implies that professionals such as architects create the world and then let the public in. According to him, it is the other way around, and the architect must figure out to what extent they can participate in the existing built environment. A simple design exercise being the analysis of what to share to create a neighborhood. One option is a tower, where the owners of 50 units may only run into one another out of need or accident. Another being a courtyard with all front doors facing one another. This illustrates the fact that architecture pertains to the problem of social control. Habraken sees this as an opportunity to set a theme and parameters and expand on it. Architects believe that they could shape cities and create the future, but Habraken stated that you can't design the ordinary. The role of the architect was always to design special buildings, temples and villas and fortresses, but the shift to the ordinary produced mass housing that abhorred Habraken. The shift had happened without anyone noticing, doing things that architects had never done in the past, and requiring new ways of working to be effective. He developed a series of vignettes during his time at MIT, the door play and the don't go back exercises, which he believed were the stepping stones to manipulating form and becoming an incredible designer, focusing on process over product, attempting to shy away from the arrogance of the artist in oneself. His lessons were hard to instill onto young architects due to publication infatuation with what he describes as simply objects. The comparison is that it is attractive to students to be the next Frank Lloyd Wright, where a top-down, complete, adolescent control of the project becomes intoxicating. However, this only works in designing a few homes. Habraken asked, "What if you are to design 100 of these? They will all begin to look like copies. You must incorporate a strategy. Control on all levels must be denied because it does not work. This does not mean that the architect can no longer design a chair, but they must recognize that each building can carry its own rhythm of windows and sills, neighboring structures, and differing heights." When presented with a text of Habraken's ideology, many architects that were invited to speak and introduce their interpretations were found to have, and I quote, "no idea what was going on and were trying to sell their own form of architecture," further validating his ideas. As such, it is stated that the future of architecture is not functional design, but beloved design. Functionalist architecture is only in place as long as there is a function for it, but designing the organization of space instead of aestheticism and facades provides for a much more vivid and long-lasting environment.